Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Karma Dialogues Day 2. I'm AISHAH Sinclair, coming to you live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I will be your host for this evening. Now, for those of you who joined us yesterday, thank you so much for that. But we have another great evening lined up for you today. Now, we will be talking to award-winning Indonesian filmmaker Nia Dinata on what it takes to be a great filmmaker, to make great films, and why she has chosen to pursue art and her passion over commercial success. So, hi, Nia.
Hi, Aisha. Hi, everyone. Thank you
We're
for
looking.
joining us. It's such an honor to be here.
Yeah, we're looking forward to chatting with you later. Okay, I heard you've got some really interesting stories to tell. Well, obviously, you are a filmmaker, so I'll be looking forward to that. And also we have singing diva Janice Javier, who is coming to you live from Manila. Hi, Janice.
Hello, good morning, good evening, everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, good evening, because it's the evening side here, but it could be lunch somewhere across the world. How have you been today?
I'm okay. Just feeling a little bit tired because we were out early in the morning. We had a mission this morning, so it was a very
Wow.
tiring but very fulfilling day.
Yeah, so I heard that you have been keeping yourself busy with helping people who have been affected by the typhoon that has hit the Philippines. So I'll be asking you more about that later. Really, really excited to know that. But you are actually going to be starting the show for us today. Now,
That's
Janice
right.
has been singing for many years now in Bangkok, in Manila, for audiences across the globe, international audiences. What are you going to be singing for us today, Janice?
I'll be singing this very very new song from the BTS. This is not in. It's a very famous Korean group, Korean boy group, but I won't be singing it in Korean. It's in English, so I'm very happy and
Wow.
very relieved. So this is quite famous now. So a lot of people knows this song.
Okay, you know what? I'm going to hand it over to you. Take it away, Janice.
All right. So watch me break the fire, set the night light. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cover me, let's rock and roll. King Kong, hit the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up on the top of the road. Ding dong, call me on my phone, I see and I give a ping pong. This ready, can you please roll my ready? Life is sweet as honey, and the spit to change like money. This your overload, I'm in to die, I'm good to go, I'm timeless, you know I glow up. So let's go! Cause I'm in stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Shining through the city with a little soul. Lighting up like a dynamite. Bring the rage on the grind, whoever wanna come along. Wide up, talk the talk, just move like we off the wall. Hey, day or night, skies are light, so we dance to the break of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I got them ready, so you should keep eyes on the ball. Hey, this is heavy, heavy, this room I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, ready to spit the chain like money. This door overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go. I'm timing, you know I'm low. So let's go! Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'm a lighting up like a dynamite. Whoa, life is dynamite. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'm a lighting up like a dynamite. Whoa, na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, light it up, dynamite. Na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, light it up, dynamite. It's I'm in the stars tonight. So So watch me break the facet light, shining through the city with a little pumpkin snow. I'm gonna light it up like dynamite. Hey, come on. No, so watch me break the facet light, shining through the city with a little pumpkin snow. I'm gonna light it up like a dynamite. Na 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 it's dynamite. Na 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 it's dynamite. Shining through the city with a little pumpkin snow. Light it up like a dynamite. Whoa. Thank you. A little song to wake everybody up.
Dialogues. If you just joined us, you probably missed amazing performance by JANICE Javier from the Philippines, singing diva with an amazing rendition of BTS's Dynamite. Thank you so much, JANICE. All right, now 2020 is going to be one of those years that goes down in history as a very challenging year, especially for our generation. It's been tough all across the world, but the globe, across the globe, people have been soldiering on. They've been finding ways to thrive despite all of these challenges, and that's what the Karma Dialogues are all about. It's pretty much to explain. So to explain the idea behind the dialogue, we have the UN Assistant Secretary General and the head of UNDP Asia and the Pacific, Miss Kani Wignaraja, who's coming to us live from New York. Good evening, Kani.
Thank you, Aisha. Now, yesterday we heard the excellent story of award-winning novelist Shyam Salvadore, and so authentic, so real to the issues of today. And now you will hear from a terrific filmmaker and director from Indonesia. The Karma Dialogues is a series of conversations brought to you by UNDP's Asia Pacific Bureau that are intended to inspire. So karma speaks to our actions that define us and steer our destinies. It is the very concept of cause and effect, and simply put, our past and present actions impact our future. And we want to influence and impact that future in a good way. So this is about bringing together a group of inspiring characters, really characters, who have decided to act. They have been bold. They have often not chosen the easy way, or maybe the easy way did not choose them. So we want them to share their stories, to inspire young people across the region, and to say that even in tough times, as we are in now, these are moments and these are individuals that stir us to make a difference, to do more. So here we are in day 2 of a UNDP series called the Karma Dialogues, to take charge of our destiny. So back to you, Aisha.
Thank you very much, Kani. Now, our guest tonight could have taken another route, just like what Kani said. She chose not to take the easy route. Now, this easy route probably would have gained her more commercial success. However, she's chosen to commit to her passion and the art that she deeply cares about. Now, her work has won her critical acclaim, both home in Indonesia and all across the globe. Joining us from Jakarta, award-winning filmmaker and director, Nia Dinata. Hi, Nia. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to share everything with you tonight.
All right. And yes, we are looking forward to hearing your stories. Now, we have tons of questions prepared that we want to ask you. However, I'd like to tell everybody who's listening, especially in the Zoom call, you can actually ask questions directly to Nia if you want. What you can do is you can actually just raise your hands and we'll have the technical people highlight you and work that out and maybe unmute your mic so you can actually pose your questions directly to Nia. If not, you can always do so in the chat section or the Q&A box, or if you're watching this from Facebook or from YouTube, in the comments too, there'll be people watching that. So, Nia, tell me a little bit about your childhood. Now, you are known as a filmmaker whose films touch very controversial or maybe taboo topics, right? You cover pretty much everything that, people would not normally talk about in more conservative parts of Asia. But tell me about your childhood, though, because I believe that, that probably was like the foundation to you finding, your courage and your voice. How was it like growing up in Jakarta?
Well, interesting question. I rarely share stories about my childhood.
What?
But,
why?
I don't know. People just rarely ask things that goes way back. But I'm happy to share, and I feel very lucky to be born in Jakarta in the 70s, in 1970. And to be born from quite a diverse family background, because Indonesia is such a big country with hundreds of ethnic groups. And even in Java itself, we have West Java, we have Central Java and East Java, and everybody has a very specific dialect and everything. And from Java to Sumatra, usually in my parents' generation, or maybe in my grandparents' generation, they married, like the Javanese married to the Javanese, and the Sumatran is married to the Sumatran. So it's like we are united in diversity, but we used to be very, traditional in a way that family choose who to marry and stuff like that. But I was very lucky because I was born from a Sundanese family background, which is from the West Java, and then West Sumatra, Padang background from my mother's side. So that itself is already like two different cultures blend together. And I have to mention that both my parents and my grandparents are the source of my early childhood education, which they really value toleration, they really value diversity, and they really value, like authenticity and equality in a way, because I was the first granddaughter from both sides, and then my little brother born 2 years later, and there has never been any discrimination,
Wow.
between like us two. And growing up in Jakarta in the 70s, it's like Jakarta was still unpolluted, very beautiful. So I love sports. I love riding the bike, and do all kinds of things. Very active, right?
Would you say it's like a privileged childhood? Would you say it was a privileged childhood?
Yes, I have to admit that it's quite a privilege, because we grew up in a very, everybody give us, trust and freedom, even since childhood. When I was 5, 6, I can ride bicycle with my brothers and my uncles, aunts, to places that, I didn't get, I never heard my parents or my grandparents say things like, you are a girl, so you shouldn't do that.
Oh,
I never heard that. Yes, and I think that's
I'm sorry, but like
greatest privilege.
In the 70s, people, you'd assume that would be more of the conversation. Like, no, you're a girl. You need to do X, Y, Z. Although, yes, you would, get a proper education, but there were a lot of expectations as a female. And I believe, the Malaysian culture is not too different from the Indonesian culture, where we have the same kind of belief. You're a girl, you shouldn't be doing that. But you received none.
No, I received none. absolutely none until my parents moved to Saudi Arabia in 1976 because they transferred their work as an expat in Saudi Arabia in 1976. So I moved there, imagining the 1001 Night, because that's what my grandparents gave me, like all the books. They all love to read and discussing news from the newspaper, even like the famous wayang puppet Ramayana, Mahabharata. It's like all stories told by my grandfather. It's like we are all in a way storytellers, but none of us, except me in my generation, went into art, because nobody went into art, but they are appreciative of literature, films, and traditional puppet performance.
So it was a surprise.
It's a surprise. So when I arrived in Jeddah in 1976, I still remember, in the summer of 1976, I was excited because I read all the 1000 Night books and everything. So I imagined this exotic culture, new culture. But then the moment I arrived, my parents told me that this place is different. So I could no longer ride a bike with my brother. I had to stay at home indoor. I had to just go to school, international school, but went back to our expat complex and just read books in the small library in the expat complex, and then watch films from their Betamax collection, like very small collection of film. And that's where I spent most of my childhood times, from 6 years to 11 to almost 12 years old. So,
so that's like 6 years. So is that where your love for film possibly was born?
I believe so. Because at that time, I still remember we didn't have that much collection of Betamax in the library. So we only have Kramer versus Kramer, which my mother said is not for your age. But I went to watch it like 2 years after, like when I was 8, I just sneak it out and then watch it, and I cried. I really didn't know that, you can get that kind of tragedy in as a child, having to choose which parents. So, I sneak out and then I watch it because, when your mother say this is not for you, you are more curious, right?
Absolutely, you're gonna watch it, definitely.
Yes, definitely. But I ended up watching films like The Sound of Music, Bugsy Malone, and I think Help, The Beatles. The film. And just like those 4, 5 that I watch over and over again until I really know all the dialogues and all the scenes. So I think but also the books, because Tom Sawyer and all the adventurous books I read over and over again, because at that time the collection wasn't big. So I ended up being indoor, reading and watching films over and over again.
I can imagine, previously having the opportunity to go out and, to just spending your time and your energy to being cooped up inside. Those books and movies probably became your best friend, honestly, right?
Absolutely.
Now, how long were you in Jeddah and then you moved back to Indonesia?
Yeah, around 5.5 years. And then I moved back to Indonesia and I went to junior high. And then,
how's that?
Well, of course, I was so looking forward to go back to Jakarta and be free, because I can do more competitive sports like tennis and stuff like that. And, riding a bike. I love riding a bike. And, but during high school, it's a growing pain moment, right? Things were kind of different because I experienced bullying in high school. You know, even at that year, bullying always exists, right? Like mean girls in high school, and also bullying from my senior in high school, but also bullying to you know, I have a best friend in high school who I met when I first came to the school, and then he's a little bit different because he loves to hang out with us girls, and all the boys are always bullying him. And so I was like, I was confused, you know, with this kind of you know, violation. And
Your
then
perception towards him, maybe, you know, or reception towards him. So you were wondering, like, why was it happening? But so even at that young age, you kind of knew that, look, this is not fair, because your family was very liberal in that sense, you know. I mean, there was no judgment, no preconceived notions towards people who decide to go, you know. I don't know, in our part of the world, we call it alternative lifestyles, but I don't believe that that is the correct term to use nowadays. So
it's
your family was quite liberal.
Because my family, my grandparents from my mother's side has this nephews who came from outside of Jakarta, who went to university in Jakarta, and they all live with my grandparents, and they studied dance. One of my uncles studied dance as a choreographer, and the other one studied interior design, so very artistic. And it's just a form of expressing themselves. And of course, they love to hang out with my mother, with my grandmother, with me, you know. So I never thought that, you know, if an individual want to express their authenticity, their artistic ability, and then they can get bullied, you know. And so I didn't experience that in Saudi Arabia because I had my more personal issues with me being indoor 90% of the time. And then when I started my teenage years, I experienced bullying and another bullying towards one of my best friend. And then I started to question myself, and I questioned my grandparent, my grandma especially, because she is the one who told me that, you know, people like your uncles and your best friends, they have different kind of expression, and they just need to express themselves, and it's the basic rights to express themselves. So that's always my grandmother is from Padang, West Sumatra. Can you imagine? Who was born in 1920, and then she just a very simple grandmother who loves to
and she has a very open mind.
Simple compassion, I guess. And then so so that's where I got my lesson that, you know, it's not okay to bully, but it's okay to stay friends and stay protective. You know, you have to bond together against all of this bullying and all of this.
Now, so after you went through your secondary school or secondary education in Indonesia, for your tertiary, you went actually to the US to study, right?
Yeah, after I finished high school.
Now that was, I am sure, another complete experience for you, an exposure to, you know, ways of thinking, ways of living. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, when I was, I studied journalism in my undergraduate with lots of film electives because I just love films. But even at that time, after I finished high school, I never thought that film can be a career, because at that year in 1988, it was 1988, and then Indonesia was still in a regime. It's like a 32 years old regime that was still very strong, and we you know, we didn't have that many choices of Indonesian films in 1988. I grew up watching very few classical Indonesian films by Teguh Karya, one of my favorite director, the late Teguh Karya. Or I watched films with my grandmother when I was like 5 years old, and I still remember it's the Tiga Dara classical films that was from the 1956, and sometimes, you know, our national TV do a rerun, and then my grandmother from my father's side always say, you know, there is a rerun of Tiga Dara, you have to take a nap, and then we will watch it together. And you know, because
that's so cute. But is it because
nap,
during
like
that
2 hours nap,
don't wake up and don't come out of the room now?
Yeah, and then you can stay awake, you know, something like that. And that was except Hollywood films, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that they, you know what, freedom of expression was not really encouraged? Because, you know, making film is a way to tell your story or somebody else's story. It is a form of expression. So do you think during this period people weren't encouraged, or was it heavily controlled, as in what you can and cannot talk about?
Of course, but at that time I didn't even know the history of my own cinema, because I only watch films in the cinema wherever my aunt or my uncle, because I'm the oldest granddaughter, so they treat me like their sister, right? The youngest brothers and sisters of my parents. So every time there is a good film, they take me along. But it's only like, you know, once a year or twice a year at that time. So most of the films that came into Indonesia at that time were the Hollywood films, the blockbusters like the Superman franchise, and, you know, all the big blockbuster films. Rocky, you know, and so I really enjoyed that, because I love the experience being in the cinema, especially when I was in high school. There was no Cineplex or multiplex. There was only like this big screen, classical screen with curtains, and then the curtains went up, and I can
it's
focus.
Romance.
It's
the romance
the
of filmmaking, right?
Of film and cinema.
So even though you were very much in love with cinema and films and things like that, so when you went to university, you actually studied journalism. You thought that, you know what, there's going to be no future in filmmaking. However, you did take electives. But at what point did you decide that, you know what, I'm going to do filmmaking? This is it. Journalism's not for me.
After I graduated.
But you graduated from journalism.
Yes, after I graduated, I realized that, oh my God, I want to take more. I want to take more practical knowledge in filmmaking, because that's all I did, basically. When I was in the US, there was so many art house cinema. So I was exposed to the Iranian film, to Jang Imo's work, to like old Japanese cinema, to Italian cinema, and French cinema, and especially Iranian cinema, that really touches my heart. And I was like, oh my God, this country that is in war with the US during my time in university, they can make such a beautiful film. So so I spent basically, if I wasn't in class, I spent basically all of my time inside the independent or art house cinema watching foreign movies, because in Indonesia I couldn't do that, right? And then here we didn't have, you know, like OTT streaming and stuff like that, and so we had to go to cinema to watch film. So that's basically what I did. And then I realized, oh my God, if Hossein Makhmalbaf from Iran can make this beautiful film, Indonesia is not at war. We should be able to make beautiful films that really speak about, you know, the importance of equality.
And what your society is going through,
Yes, and exactly what the society is going through, precisely.
Real stories, Right, no, okay, so you've always been drawn to these kind of stories, that kind of risk. So when you were in university and you were studying literature as a journalist, you actually chose to read more literature by minority rather than famous writers like your American
like
poets
English
or writers
lit,
and things like that.
English lit 201. I choose something with the beginning of 2, but like minority literature.
Why did you choose that?
I was just drawn into that because I always ask myself, I want to know more about women writers. Why there are always men, like, most of the English lit classes that I have to choose, it's like all the books and in the syllabus I read. It's in the institution, right? It's a patriarchal institution, even universities. And then I just had to do my own research. Is there any more interesting class that, can give me credits, like equal credits, like this mainstream literature class? And so I found them. I found minority literature, women's literature. So I really enjoyed reading like Zora Neale Hurston, Amy Tan, even, like Chinese American writers, African American writers, Alice Walker. Their words are so powerful, and their stories are not like I've never known anything like that before. It's a revelation every time I read their books, their novels. So I felt like, oh my God, there are so many interesting stories. There are so many interesting experiences of humanity in their stories that I benefit. I benefit because I gain my compassion. I gain knowledge about the African American culture, their fight, and even like the Asian Chinese American culture who came first to San Francisco, and their fight between the mother and the daughter, the generational gap and everything. That just interests me more than the male writers.
So I guess that also made you realize the importance of you telling your own story, because you see your story and the story of the people that you see back home in Indonesia. Possibly, do you think that this could be your moment to say, yeah, you know what, I need to tell my story one way or another?
Mm-hmm. True. Yes. I think it goes naturally. I never planned to, I want to tell this story. I don't have slate because I don't have, like I don't work for big studios. Even up until now, I always work independently. And so I don't have slates. Like this year, I want to make this. This is the market. They love this kind of film. I mean, I see people do that, and then it's really amazing. I can really appreciate people who are in the industry and choose to do that. But I think my soul and my heart is not made to work that way. I always, like to work with small group of people and then share stories and find something that touches our heart. So yeah, I guess that's why I chose also my first film to be Cabaukan, my first feature. And when I came back, I made music videos. I worked as a proxy for MTV Asia in Jakarta. MTV Asia was in Singapore at that time. And I made film for TV, but I chose my first work for the big screen was Cabaukan because that novel was published in 1999, 1 year after the Indonesian reform era, after the regime fell down. And then the big publisher have the courage to publish a novel about Chinese Indonesian man who fell in love with a Javanese woman, which is indigenous. Mm-hmm. It's a story in the 20s. And so I was like, oh my God, the feeling was similar when I read the minority literature work when I was in university. The feeling was similar, like, oh my God, this is like the Chinese Indonesians are the minority in our country. And then, but yet our culture is so much blend in. Even our gamelan, our Javanese music, it's all pentatonic. It's, you know, in a pentatonic sound, and it just, you know, it's just a pity if we keep on discriminating, or we bury the story ourselves. You know? So I really want to give a more broader audience, and I chose Cabaukan as my first film. That's why.
Now, how was the reception of people towards that movie?
Well, I was pregnant when I shot Cabaukan with my
And I heard you faced a lot of challenges, personal challenges, because of your pregnancy. Yeah, before you answer my first question, tell us about that.
Right. So I developed, I mean, I got the rights for the book because the writer, Mr. Remy Silado, he was, I was so persistent. And then at that time, he was almost sold the rights to a big television company to make like a series or something. And I said, you know, I know the character. So we had like discussions like 5 times probably in our meeting. Like we did a character analysis, and so he just listened to me and my analytical blabbering about this character, that character. And then suddenly he said, okay, I would just want to give it to you. And I said, how much? I have my savings, but it's not a lot. And then he said, no, you don't have to pay. And I was like, really? And so it's kind of like that kind of persistence, I think, that you just have to have that drive and have faith. And so I really, really forever grateful for that. And then I adapted into screenplay. And then I went to research, and then I got pregnant. So like everybody was already on board. But of course, there are few important people in my crew who said that, you know, maybe we don't feel confident having a pregnant
They
director.
didn't feel confident because you were expecting, and they felt that you as a pregnant woman, you were not capable of, you know, carrying out your duties as a director.
Yes, exactly.
How did you work around that?
I was so down at that time, and, you know, but then I asked myself for like several weeks, do I really want to do this, or do I postpone until the baby was born and then do it? But I work as an independent filmmaker, so I raise the fund independently, and I only have that much. And then my co-producer, like my best friend from high school, that loved the book, the novel, and they were the one that believes in me also. Like, no, if we postpone, then the you know, the, like, what you call the clock,
the build up, and then
it build up, and it build up the cost and everything. So I said, well, you know, I'm strong. I have a very I had no problem with the pregnancy, and this is my second already. So I knew how I felt because I had experience. And then my husband, I am very lucky because my husband is a very open-minded person, amazing human being. And so he said, you know better, you know your body. It's not my body. It's our baby, but it's your body. So he said, okay. And I said, I feel better. I feel like useless if I just stay at home and then postpone everything. So yeah, I mean, at first I was really down. I was really depressed because I never expect those judgment coming from my fellow filmmaker, like fellow independent group, some actors, very senior actors that were already agreed to be in the movie. Things
and
like
they
that.
Pulled out, right? They chose not
but
to be
that only makes you stronger, I guess, because then we found placement, we found people that really appreciate all the passion that is.
Now we have a clip from your movie Cabaukan, which is your first film. It's really beautiful. It's a period piece, right? It's set in the era,
in the 20s.
In the 20s. So maybe we could play a little bit of that, and then you can tell us, you know, the scene as to, you know, a rough, you know, synopsis maybe.
Right. Please.
Ingat yang namanya Tan Peng Liang?
Tan Peng Liang, orang Semarang itu memang setan. Dia sudah mati, tapi namanya terus ada. Berkali-kali dikerjain, tetap saja dia ada. Dasar setan, setan.
Apa-apa saja yang orang pernah kerjakan terhadap Tan Peng Liang?
Banyak. Tio Bun Hiap membakar gudangnya. Tapi Tan Peng Liang yang ketangkap. Disidang, dibui, gara-gara ketahuan bikin uang palsu. Dia bisa kabur ke Makau, bahkan sampai ke Thailand. Ini semua gara-gara cabokannya yang menghisap lebih kuat dari sembrani.
End of the movie. And
oh, did we just spoiled it for everyone who hasn't seen it? That was the ending.
it's actually a recap. So that set was supposed to be in the 60s when the daughter of the Javanese woman and the Chinese Indonesian man came back because during the war she went with a Dutch family to the Netherlands, and then she went back to find out about what happened with the father. So that's and then at the end she found out what's really happening between the mother and the father. And yeah, so I'm drawn to the story because of course it's written by Remy Silado. He's a very prolific music writer actually in the Suharto era, but she's like a great novelist. But of course, every time he wrote a novel, it's always banned. Before 1998, right?
He spent some time in prison, right? Also because of his writing?
Yes, because of his writing, yeah.
But you also felt that, you know what, Indonesia had reached a time where stories like that are okay to tell. Now, Nia, we have a lot of questions.
I made it after the reform, AISHAH. After
the reform, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and that's when everybody found their voice.
Yes.
Now, I actually have a lot of questions. I've been getting a lot of questions people want to ask you. Okay, so earlier I said that, you know, I've opened it up to everybody who's watching, and if they've got a question, they can raise their hand, and then we're going to get the tech guys on the mic. So we'll do one question. She can ask it directly to you. Fiona Mahone. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if I'm saying this wrong. Okay, because I'm just reading what's off the cue card. Is there a Fiona? Let's see if we can get her mic turned on. Fiona, if you're there, can you just say hi?
Hello, Fiona.
Okay, so we will wait for Fiona. So you know what? I'm going to wait for the tech guys to find her, and then they are going to inform me, and then we will take the question from her. No problem. So another question, and this was from the chat box from Din Long Pham, and the question is, how do you handle all the heavy censorship that you are facing? Were you ever scared? But did you actually face a lot of censorship? Because yes, Cabaukan spoke about you know, interracial relationships during a time which was very challenging for the ethnic minorities. And then you later on created movies that spoke of people within the LGBTQ communities, those who are facing polygamous relationships. So, I mean, they were all taboo topics. So were you censored? Did you face
Of course, the first time I experienced censorship was with Cabaukan. And that's when I realized, oh my God, we are already in the reform era, but there's no more, there is up until now, no more pre-censorship, because before the reform, every single screenplay has to be censored before you get the letter that say, yes, you can shoot. So it's like a permit letter from the government. Now we don't have that anymore since after the reform. But I just realized that we do have post censorship, which after we finish all the film and the masters and everything, before we put it into cinema, then the cinema won't screen it until they have this censorship letter that is transferred into 35 millimeter, and then boom, you have to see it on screen that this film has been censored, you know. And the censorship in Indonesia is like pure cut by the censorship board. So I found out when I put my film, my master in Cabaukan, my first film, in the censorship office. And then I was waiting and waiting for several days, you know, anxious, full of anxiety, the whole team. And then suddenly with fax machine at that time, the fax came in and said that, you know, from feet, because it's still 35 millimeter, that wasn't digital. Yeah. And from this feet to this feet need to be cut for 3 meters. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh, good Lord. That's so like a huge part of the movie.
Yeah, so I had to come and then I had to talk with the head of censorship board, which was a woman novelist, Ibu Tati Maliati. She is still alive. And I remember, oh my God, so it's Ibu Tati Maliati. I remember because he wrote sitcom in our national TV that I used to watch when I grew up.
Oh, wow. So do you think
so I was like,
favor?
oh my God, I'm going to meet with this. I'm a big fan, because there was no, and it's a woman. Okay, I have to do my strategy. So and then I helped her. And then she said, you know how it works in Indonesian censorship, Nia? I couldn't watch your film because we have 45 members of censorship board. And then it's like lottery. Nobody knows who will watch what. And 9 out of the 45 people will watch the film. And if they don't have dispute, I don't meddle, she said. And I said, yes, but it's my first film and it's after the reform. And then it's important because the scene that they are going to cut is the scene where my heroine was raped by the Japanese soldier, because she was trapped as a Jugun Ianfu, which is like, you know, it's well known also in the world, where in Japanese occupation that it's a women sex slave, right?
Comfort women, right?
Comfort women, yes. And then she said, okay, I watch it. And then she watched it, and then she said, I had to talk with my team, the 9 other people, and I managed to say that you shouldn't cut it fully, just shorten it. But because in the beginning they are trying to cut it fully, take it out.
Yeah, they wanted to cut it in its entirety, but they maybe took out some bits without disturbing your story or the message that you want to put across.
Yeah.
I have time for another question. This is from the chat box, and it's from Ranjita Mohanty, and she says that filmmaking, in a way, is a way to convey a message or tell your story that others will relate to your life to some extent. So, out of the places that you have lived, where did you get the inspiration to be the filmmaker? So, where was it?
To be the filmmaker, or to find inspiration for stories? Or I can answer both.
To begin? Okay, yes, go ahead.
To be the filmmaker, of course, in the United States. When I was still in college in Pennsylvania. I mean, I belong to a film club. Like I said, I went to art house cinema almost every day. I took journalism, and then just, you know, few months before I graduated, I said, no, I don't want to go back and be a journalist. I think I need to study more about film. So that's where I know when I know I want to be a filmmaker. Yeah, at the end of my journalism.
Okay, and then so where do you get most of your inspiration from?
Of course, from life in Jakarta, life in Indonesia as a whole country. Yeah. It is very diverse. It has so many amazing stories about the voiceless. And I also produce documentary film, and I love producing and making documentary films. And it's just an abundance of story to tell, story of struggling, story of love, story of resilience in my country, in Indonesia.
Your movie, Arisan, which is also very critically acclaimed. So I love the story. I love what it's about. But it tells the story of your three main characters. And one of them is a man who is gay, right? And so there was a kissing scene in the movie, and surprisingly, that made it through. So there's no censorship. So I'm going to lead that to a question from Marte, and this. So she actually put it through because this question was from one of the viewers, somebody who was listening in on Facebook, and said that, so Netflix has opened the door to LGBTQIA to be part of the storyline and its norm. So there's a lot of shows on Netflix, a lot of the popular streaming platforms that has all of this. So how far are we having similar storylines interjected into Asian movies? I mean, are we getting there? Are we there already? I know, yes, in yours, but also from your compatriots, from your peers, your compatriots, people that you see around.
Well, I always struggle with censorship in every single movie that I make. So after Cabokan, every single movie I have to deal with censorship because the head of censorship board change every 4 years, right? So when Arisan was released, it's a different it's a different head of censorship board, and it's also a woman, and it's also another novelist. And then she said that, you know, I'm going to fight for your film because of course my members they all want to take it out, but I will fight because she believes in the story. So I'm also forever grateful for that kind of, you know, trust from our seniors, because like she's like 30 years older than me, right? And then we have to like you know, like women supporting women. It's something that I experience and I really value it so much. But I see more and more women like that. I see less and less women like that in that high position everywhere in the art and, you know, film, television world, OTT like Netflix of Indonesia. I see that since 2010, I think the values are drawn into drawn to the right, and then it's going too far to the right. And with social media, I feel like everybody has the means to be very judgmental and imposing their belief in whatever they see, whether it's immoral or good moral. And so I think if the question is, as an Asian filmmaker, how far are we from having similar storyline interjected into Asian movies? I think we are moving backwards. I sincerely think so. Are moving backwards because I made Arisan and it's in Netflix, so you can watch it. I made Arisan in 2003. In 2003, I made Cabokan in a production in 2000, and then I made Arisan in 2003, and it passed censor. Because of that, like women supporting women, we have women in that position that can say, no, this is not a campaign for LGBT. It's just a love story, and it's just a friendship story that is done humanely, and it can open up people's discussion, because the kissing scene was not sexual at all, and that's my vision. I didn't want to make a sexual kissing scene, and there is somebody up there in that high position that understood at that time. And yeah, I think after 2010 everything is moving backwards.
That's so sad. And this is because of the internet. And like you said, now everybody has a voice, and you kind of force it's funny because you think that this freedom of expression and everybody having a platform, you would be more open and tolerant to, different points of views. But what's happening nowadays is we're even more so, we're forcing our own opinions and then, judging people left, right, and center. Right? Now, we have a clip from one of your movies. It's called Kebaya Pengantin, or The Wedding Gown, which is a very interesting story. I read a bit of the synopsis. So it's a story of a wedding gown designer, but she is a trans woman, and, the story that she has to go through. So I'd love to play a little bit of that right now, and then maybe you can talk a bit about it, yeah?
Yes.
All right, so let's roll that now.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Yes. Kebaya Pengantin, or The Wedding Gown, is a short film that I did in 2014. I got a grant from Women Girls, and KL-based NGO, small grant, and they choose one women filmmaker from Southeast Asia, so from Indonesia, from Brunei, from Thailand, from KL, from Philippines, and Singapore. So there were 6 of us. We're making each a 15-minute short film, and that's the show. That's the theme I chose. And yeah, so I wish you all can watch. We should make like a cinema night. It's only 15 minutes.
I know, we should do a screening, right? And then we can have director's notes after, and we can have a Q&A with you. Yes, I think it's a brilliant idea. So how was so this was 2014. So where was the short film, where was it shown actually? Or was it just at private viewing?
In KL and in few other countries in that, in the film festival. But it's not shown commercially because it's only 15 minutes. So it's shown in festivals and in film discussions, in road shows, in some of the Southeast Asian country, along with the other 5. So every country has its own story.
Now, in your journey as a female filmmaker, you have been, both, you have had, extreme challenges also, and you've had some good things too, like you found allies that you can work with in the women in the censorship board. Now, we've got a question from Shakil Ahmad, and he wants to know that, do some of these challenges that you faced as a female filmmaker, do you think it would have been the same had you been a male filmmaker, especially in Indonesia?
Well, probably, of course, it's going to be very different, because the first thing I got, like discrimination, doubt, was when I was pregnant, and then only women get pregnant, right? Male filmmaker will never be doubted by their colleagues, especially if they already sign up for to be on board, right, with the project. But in censorship, it's always a different kind of look after after Berbagi Suami, after Love for Share. So it's like maybe around 2008, I should have known better, because I had this instinct, like why now, like this censorship board was dominated by male, and then why there's always this look, you all women must know that kind of look, like you, a woman filmmaker, how dare you make this kind of story. And then because in Indonesia you can actually have dialogue with the board. It's not like they cut. After the reform, you can have dialogue. But I always feel that every time we sit in the room full of male above 60 years old, and they look at me and my team, who were mostly women, and presenting our argument why we want to make this scene, we want to have this scene and not cut the scene. It's like a hearing process. So it's kind of like I know it by heart already, from the look, from their comments. Why, Mbak Nia, you always make stories like that? It's as if there is no other story or interesting love story, or just like why you making women characters like this? It's so it's so un-Indonesian. Sometimes they say that. So it's interesting, and I say, no, Indonesia is very diverse, Pak. You cannot just say that this type of woman is Indonesian. It's the staple of being an Indonesian woman. So stuff like that I experience.
So, however, that has not stopped you from creating movies with very strong social messages inside. So what hope do you think people will take away from watching your movies? What do you hope that when they step out of the cinema, how are they feeling? What are they doing? What are they talking about?
Well, I just hope that when they see my film, when they step out of the cinema, they see real women, and they feel that, right, this is actually part of the reality that we're living in. And that kind of women existed. They are not always, their life is not always glossy. And, even though they can look glossy, but inside, but they have, very unique conflict in each and every part of or stage of their life. And there are men who want to be allies with these women. There are realities of trafficking, or realities of having to be forced in a polygamous marriage, or having to be forced even in a very simple story like Tiga Darah. It's a remake of the 1956 Tiga Darah. It's a very simple story of, in the 50s, people always ask, when are you going to marry? And then it's still in 2016 at that time, it's the same question when your family gather, because we are Southeast Asian. Always, if you have a single woman in your family that is over 30, they always impose that question. And then it's just a part of life that we need to be critical a little bit, and then put it in the big screen so people can see in a more, they can see the detail. They can see the detail of the point of view of these characters, because I love making character-driven films.
I love that. So I'm glad you brought up Tiga Darah. So we actually, we're going to wrap up our conversation soon. So right before we end, I would love to share a clip from Ini Kisah Tiga Darah, or the English translation of the title of the movie is Three Sassy Sisters, right? Which is a remake of the 50s movie under the same name. Right? So let's take a look at that.
Oma.
Halo, Oma. Itu bukan yang berminyak.
Gimana kalau kamu sama aku kita anterin Bebe terus kalian jalan-jalan?
Wow. Aku kesambet apa-apa? Kalau first date itu jangan di kuburan. Itu namanya apa mandi, kata orang Sunda mah.
Oh, Ma, kita nggak ngedate.
Jadi pokoknya kalau yang namanya gendis mau dating sama Juta, tidak boleh ada yang ganggu. Oke?
Siap, my matria.
Mi, matria?
Ya, siap.
Jangan kecentilan, sayang.
Yuda, baju aku cantik nggak?
Kamu pakai baju apapun selalu cantik ya?
Oh ya? Pun I love you, Oma, tapi ini 2016. Jadi terserah aku dong mau deketin siapa.
When the world is tired of the matriarch, here we're facing the matriarch. Do this, do that, but don't do this, and don't do that.
I don't mind being called a matriarch. I only want what's best for you all, you know.
Matriarch, oh matriarch, we are stuck with our beloved matriarch.
That's wonderful. So it's a musical, and it
Yes,
tells the story
the
of
original
three.
was also a musical. From the 50s
The original was also
a
a musical. So it tells the story of three extremely modern, strong-willed sisters, and them challenging the norm,
Yeah.
the traditional norm, the matriarch, and the traditional norm, which is, like you said, this question that is faced by almost every unmarried woman who is in this part of the world. If we are above a certain age, it's always going to be, your life is not going to be complete until you get married. I mean, forget about whatever you have achieved in your life, your personal successes, your career development and all that. It doesn't matter. Let's get you a husband.
True. And interestingly, this is the most fun film I've ever done in my life. That is really, it's like, it's just a simple sisterhood films that they love their grandmother, but their grandmother is so meddling into their life. And but fun fact, this is because it was 2016, this film got censored a lot. This film got more censored from the rest of my film in Indonesia, and it got 21 plus.
Oh, they gave it a rating of 21.
Yeah, 21. So I was shocked as an Indonesian, You know what year are we? Why every time I go to censorship board, there's always like, further backwards in projecting how Indonesian women have to behave, But that's
so I'm
really
going to ask you one quick question before we wrap up. One last question. What are your hopes for filmmaking in this part of the world, for young aspiring filmmakers, for those who are existing, who have been around for quite some time, for even those who are handling, those who make the big decisions like the censorship boards? What is your big hope?
Well, at this point of my life, I hope, and in this pandemic, I've been doing some reflections like everybody else. I hope that I think it's going to go into a more conservative world. That's for sure. I used to dream even last year that maybe we can go back into 2003, that people got a clear sense and sensibility, and they can compare the quality of life, the quality of art and everything. But then I believe that we have to be prepared to live in a more imposing and even like heavier censorship in this part of the world. But I believe that individually, we are freer individually. So I think at this point, we just have to find a way to think more strategically. Because I used to just say whatever I want to say. I used to just shoot whatever I want to shoot. But for me personally, I have to learn to find a way, like a very strategic and smarter way to say what I want to say, but they should think that it's not what I want to say. It sounds complicated, but I think that's the reality. That's the reality.
So for you, it's finding that way to get your message out there, you know, just as long as the story is out there. And for us, I guess it's the, you know, it's the courage to find our voice and to talk about what we really believe in. Thank you so much, Mbak Nia.
Thank you, Aisyah. Thank you, everyone from UNDP. It's been a great conversation. Keep doing this kind of work. And my films are available if you want to make film nights. Thank you.
I would love that.
Thank you.
Thank you
stay
so
healthy.
much. Yes,
stay safe.
definitely.
Stay healthy.
You too. And stay safe. So thank you so much to Nia Dinata for the amazing and inspiring conversation. It's been really wonderful. Now, before we end, we're going to head back to Janice, who has been on standby in Manila. Hey, Janice.
Hello.
Hi. So earlier today,
Hi.
you said that you were up and about really, really early in the morning and doing some special work. Please tell us about this.
Yeah, because right after the typhoon last week, I watched the news and I saw this grandma. She was crying and she was asking for help, and she wasn't even asking for anything. She's just asking for clothes. So I felt really, really bad about it, and my heart goes out to her. And I said, I want to do something for them. You know, even I don't care if we come up with just a small amount, but any amount will be a big help to everybody. So I started messaging friends and posting on Facebook, like saying if you have any used clothes or if you wish to donate food or money so we could buy groceries for them, everything is welcome. Anything is welcome, and it will be a great help, and we really appreciate it. So help starts pouring in, and people, my friends started raising funds. Some of my musician friends did a Facebook Live show so that they could come up with an amount. And then I did a lot of streaming also, guesting with some online shows to come up with a fund for this donation event. And so we were able to come up with a few thousands of pesos and a lot of used clothes. And we brought that to Marikina, which is greatly affected by the typhoon. And even though there's still a threat of the pandemic, it didn't stop us from going there because we knew that they need us, and we know that what we have for them will be a big help, and they really, really need it. So we did the project, and we pushed through today. And unfortunately, some of them couldn't make it because they're still in that area where it's greatly affected, and there's still water and there's still mud, and they couldn't get out. So we just left some groceries for them, and we asked the people from their vicinity to deliver all those groceries to them because we couldn't go in. Our cars were, we were just parked outside, and they said it's quite dangerous for us to go inside. So we just waited in the covered court, and we waited for the students and all the families to gather, and then we gave the groceries away. And then we moved to another area, which is in Marikina, and the water was like almost up to 2 stories of the house were affected.
No, that's so high. Poor guy.
Yeah, right. And then the water was like up to the 2nd floor, and then it subsided until above like on the head, and then the mud was like until the waist. So how could you walk with that much mud? And then yeah, so we really felt bad.
They lost pretty much everything, due to the flood waters. You know what? Bless you, Janice. Bless you and bless your friends. You know, I would love to find out how I could support your cause, and I'm sure. So it will be on your personal Facebook page, or?
Yeah, no. I just I don't post any
wow.
personal
And
numbers.
This is just through your personal contacts.
Yes, and fortunately, through my my singing career here in the Philippines, I've built up a network, and those are the people who've helped me to come up with the donation. So I'm quite blessed with that.
Oh, bless you, Janice. Okay, so you are going to sing 2 songs to wrap up the night?
That's right.
Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. So this song I'm going to perform is this bit slow song popularized by Michael Jackson. This song talks about change, and the change starts within yourself. So I hope you like it.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter car, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the streets, not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see the need? A summer's disregard, a broken battle top in a one man soul. They follow each other on the wind, you know, as they got nowhere to go. That's why I want you to know I'm standing with a man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could have been any clearer. If you wanna make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. Na 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 na. No, 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 I've been a victim of a selfish kind of love. It's time that I realize there was some but no hope. Not a little too long, couldn't be really me, pretending that they're not alone. A willow dip his cry, somebody's broken heart, in a washed out dream. They follow the pattern of the wind you see, 'cause they got no place to be. That's why I'm starting with me. I'm starting with a man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. I'm starting with a man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. I'm starting with a man in the mirror. Change his ways, no, no. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. You gotta get it right when you got the time, 'cause you got that love down there, in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his way. No message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a and make a change. Na 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 na. No no no. Na 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 na. Make a change.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Make a change.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much, Janice, for being with us
Thank
and
you.
for singing that song. It was amazing. And you know what? I think it's perfect for, you know, the times that we're in. It's one of those evergreens. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are wrapping up the show once again. Thank you so much to Nia Dinata, award-winning filmmaker from Indonesia, for, you know, answering all of our questions, for sharing parts of your life with us. Thank you so much once again. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap up the show tonight. Now, tomorrow, we've got another show at 7:30 p.m. live Bangkok time. We will be talking to two very special youths that are making a big difference in their work. Until tomorrow, ladies and gents, I'm AISHAH SINCLAIR saying, think good, do good, and good night.